I don't have to pretend to like someone's grubby little son in order to make ends meet, in order to survive. I have literally all the options in the world. Oh, I'm going to be a career woman and I'm going to be alone. And men's response to this is better renew my passport because you guys are the ones who are afraid to be alone. You guys are the ones who would rather fly to a foreign country and find a wife than be alone.
Hello, YouTube. It's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. You see the title of the video. I want to address a lot of these talking points that this iron board shaped woman was speaking about at the beginning of this video in regards to the Passport Bros. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to share her video and I'm going to break down her talking points piece by piece. So, let's get started. So here we go.
I didn't know what a passport bro was until one of my recent videos did well. Now I have the misfortune of knowing what the fuck that is.
Shaman.
And my only question is, who's going to tell them? Who is going to tell these men that American women are some of the last demographics of women to catch up with what we're talking about right now?
All right. So basically, what she's trying to say is pretty much American women are going to be the least bothered by this whole situation. She's saying, yeah, I guess for the most part, she kind of feels that American women have more options than other women in the world. So it's not really going to affect them that much, or so she thinks. As we remember, there was an article that pretty much said by the year 2030, I believe about 50% of women were going to be single and childless. So you have that going on. The other thing is that she might not be taking into consideration is the U.S. dollar has been down for a little minute now because of like the whole situation with the banks. The economy is not doing that well. Other thing is, in many cases when we're in a recession, a lot of the jobs, pretty much a lot of the women's jobs are some of the first to go. So at that point, a lot of women are going to start looking for mates and husbands and that kind of thing. So I tell a lot of guys, protect your seed. So of course, right now, to some degree, there's a little bit of truth in that, with America being such a rich country and we've civilized it so much that women like her kind of feel like they don't really need men. So of course she would say, something like this. So let's continue on and see what else she got to say.
You think Russian women are going to put up with your shit? You think Asian women are going to go 50-50 with you on the bill? You think French women are going to sleep with you just because you showed up? Oh.
All right, so we'll stop it there. So once again, one of the things she brought up was French women. A lot of passport bros. We're not going to France. We're not going to the UK. We're not going to Portugal and like Western Europe, Canada. Most of those countries, as we know, is pretty much the same as it is in America. They're all like westernized countries. So first off, we won't even be there to begin with. Then she went on to talk about Russian women and Asian women, like they're gonna put up with our stuff. And also she talked about 50-50. Once again, I mentioned this in several of my videos. The only reason why a lot of men in general talked about 50-50 is because it has been proven that about 25 to, I believe, 30% of women go on dates purposely just for the food. They have no interest in the man. They're just there to get the food and then bounce. So one of the strategies that a lot of men came up with was, okay, well, we're going to go 50-50 on this. So that way, if you don't like the date, you can just leave. There's no hard feelings, that kind of thing. It had a lot to do with that. It also had to do a lot with a lot of women saying that they're independent. I don't need a man. I can pay my own bills. And the problem with that is, okay, if you're independent and you're this modern woman, then that means that we don't have to be traditional men. You can't say, put it away, you can't be a modern woman but then want a traditional man. So what a lot of men started doing was they said, okay, well, since you're independent and you're a modern woman, I don't have to pay for your half of the date. You can pay for that, and then we can see how things go. So meet us 50-50. Now, Russian women, Asian women, they come from a more traditional background. So of course, when men go there, and not to mention that our U.S. dollar does very, very well against the currencies there. So there's no need to do 50-50. So that's pretty much irrelevant. Um, Yeah, it's pretty much irrelevant. And not to mention that in most of those countries, like Russia and in Asia, for the most part, it's mostly a patriarchy. So a lot of women are used to being under a man's leadership, catering to her husband. And in many cases, there's a lot of poverty and job scarcity in some of these countries. So a lot of times they pretty much live off one income. So they're used to supporting their man. So a lot of women there are used to bathing in their feminine energy. Um, and yeah, so that's that. So that's why you're saying it has nothing to do with putting up a crap. There's a completely difference in there's a difference in the culture. That's pretty much where a lot of this is coming from. So so the stuff you're talking about as far as putting up, I guess you're talking about um well, the fact that she brought up 50-50, I guess you're trying to say that a lot of guys are just dusty. We don't have anything going on and that kind of thing. But again, all it takes, I believe, in the Philippines is about making about $15,000 a year, and you're pretty much in the higher end of the economy. So I'm gonna end it with that. Let's see what else this. Let's see what else she has to say.
Ooh. Who's going to tell them? The reason why you can't find a traditional woman in America anymore is because there's no such thing as a traditional home or family structure because of the way our economy is fucking us all over right now. And I think it's ironic that
All right, let me stop there. Okay, so she's talking about. Okay, there's some level of truth to what she's saying. She's basically saying, as people have said back in the 1950s, a lot of times you can survive off one income. But she's saying that right now, because of the way the economy is, both people have to work, and because of that, women are not going to be traditional, which is completely false. Because most people would know this especially most people that visited like Latin America. In many cases, not only is the husband working, but the woman is still working, and she'll still come home, cook and clean for the family, and support her husband. And sometimes the husband, he's not. A lot of times, as I said before, the informal market is the biggest market in Latin America. Informal markets such as like Uber, like one of the street vendors, that kind of thing. Not the professional jobs, not the jobs you get from getting like a secondary, education. Those are not the main jobs. So a lot of times the guys there, they might be doing something like selling melons and that kind of thing, and they do that in addition to what the brings in. She might be like a cashier or like a maid or something like that, and they put their incomes together. She still, in spite of that, she still follows her husband's leadership. She still listens to his provisions, and these women are still feminists in spite of that. And they still love to raise their children. They have no problem doing that. Only in America, for some reason, because of all the propaganda and a lot of women being sold lies for the most part, that like Kevin Samuels would say, that they could have it all, that they don't really need a man. And the difference is in like Latin America, where in many cases the crime is out of control. You don't really have you don't have all these government benefits. For the most part, the government says fend for yourself. So women there could truly appreciate the provision and the leadership of men, and in harsh conditions. So they get to really see men up front perform. They get to see the benefits of having men in their life. Versus here in the United States, we're kind of air conditioned as far as dealing with life, as far as dealing like with hardships and so forth. So that's why even people who say that they're poor or they're in poverty, it's nothing like the poor and being impoverished here is nothing like it is in Guatemala or Colombia or the Philippines or Brazil, where you literally will see Philippines women who are cute living out on the street. I think in one video I saw was actually a woman living like on a cardboard. She actually had to sleep outside on like a little cardboard box. And there was another woman they showed in the back. She had like a tent. She pretty much had a tent out there. She had a child. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, it's almost like Skid Row times two. So you have that. So and then the other thing is, in many cases, as you know, a lot of Americans, we tend to live outside of our means. You got people, if you remember during that housing crisis situation, people were trying to get houses that was well outside of their yearly income, but they were trying to get it anyway. In many cases, if you notice, a lot of times when the families like from Mexico and stuff come here, they all tend to live in the same house. They get one house, and the mother, the father, and the children will grow up there. They'll all grow up there and wind up paying off the house. Then they'll move on to get like another house. But here in America, everyone likes to kind of have like their own spot. They move out of their parents' house. They get their own little thing. So it's a little bit different. But I said it to say that the women there, they're used to, put it this way, they're used to some degree being a little inconvenience for like a future outcome. So if a man was to, let's say like there's a, and I don't encourage men to do this, but they just say like there was a man who lived in a trailer park and he wanted to pay that off before and then sell it and then get like a bigger house. There are plenty of foreign women that would be okay living with that man. Now again, it may not be the best circumstance, and obviously they might prefer better, but put it this way, they're more likely than not to stick with that man out, especially if he can provide for them that kind of thing until they pay it off, until he's ready to move on to a to like a bigger place. And basically, what I'm trying to say is they're okay living with a man who lives within their means until he can pay off his debt, until he can get into a better situation. Versus here, a lot of women will call that struggle love. I'm not doing any struggle love, but women overseas, they stick with their man while he's building and trying to get to a better position. So I'll leave it at that. Let's move on.
That American women, in response to this, are going, oh, I can make my own money and I don't have to have kids and go through the painful process of labor and raising children alone, and I don't have to pretend to like someone's grubby little son in order to make ends meet, in order to survive. I have literally all the options in the world. Oh, I'm going to be a career woman and I'm going to be alone. And men's response to this is, better renew my passport, because you guys are the ones who are afraid to be alone. You guys are the ones who would rather fly to a foreign country and find a wife than be alone.
Okay, let me talk on this. Okay, so a few things. And Kevin Samuels talked about this. He said marriage is not just about love. It's not just about love. It's not just about I have somebody else there. Marriage is also about survival. The thing about marriage is about survival. As he had mentioned, in order to retire, you need a I think he was saying about like $500,000 at least in like savings just to retire comfortably. And most people are not going to have that. I was actually doing a little research on this. I was looking at how much do you need to retire? And it says, how much should I have saved for retiring by age 60? It is recommended by the age of 60, you have about 8 times your current salary to save retirement. So if you earn $75,000 a year, you need to have between 525,000 to 600,000 in retirement savings by 60. Now, let's look at how much the average American has saved up. They're saying America's household on average has only saved up about $41,000 in savings, according to the data last collected by the Federal Reserve in 2019. And I say that to say that most people in general, they just have a little bit put up maybe in their 401k or in their savings, and they try to use that to supplement like their, like their, what do you call it? The check you get from the government once you turn 60. I for some reason it's slipping me right now, but Social Security. There you go, Social Security. So in many cases, Social Security plus that you can live on it, but it's going to be a very tight type of living. So in many cases, the best option is to get married. You get married, you have children, therefore you have additional support. In addition to that, remember, not everyone, there's plenty of people that get to the age of 50, 60 have not really saved anything, because I don't know if you remember, but they said that the average American couldn't suffer a $500 emergency. So if their car broke down, engine messed up or something, had to get a new car, they were literally almost couldn't pay their bills. So most people in general, they don't really have that much saved up. So in many cases, what's going to help them go into retirement is if you have a spouse, if you have a child. Because think about the fact they said in many cases, all it really takes is for you to get really, really sick. And you can really go broke because you have so many medical bills you got to pay. And especially, and at that point, if you don't have, let's say COVID 2.0 breaks out, and you're like bedridden, you can't go to work, you better hope you have a spouse or a family, a mother, some children. And that it really is the benefit of having of having children. When you get older, you can't take care of yourself, you're going senile, You have a son, you have a daughter that can look after you, or you have a spouse, you have a wife that can kind of care for you, make sure you take your medicine, make sure you go to the doctor, can cook for you, take care of you when you can't take care of yourself, and then you can return the favor as well. So that's why she's saying stuff like you guys are being afraid of being single. It's not about being single. It's just that I know that even though I feel young now, I know there will come a day when I'm in my 70s, 80s, and I will not be as mobile as I was when I was younger. I won't be, no matter, in spite of working out, doing all this kind of stuff, it's not going to be the same as it was in, my 20s, 30s, and 40s. It's not going to be the same. So the smartest thing I could do is, one, maybe if you're rich, or maybe if you have a large retirement, you can like hire a maid or something like that. But in most cases, most people, that's not realistic. It's not practical. What most people have done, especially in other countries, because think about this, we're talking about America. Imagine in the Philippines. Imagine in Russia, like she's talking about. Imagine in Colombia or Brazil, where they, even though it said the average American has like 40,000, what do you think the average Brazilian has in savings? It's not a lot. They have to have children. That's why a lot of them have had so many children. In many cases, they live with other family members. It's to help pay for needs. And when one gets older, they have like a niece, they have a nephew, they have cousins, they have children to kind of look after them when they get older, when they can't work anymore. And in spite of that, there still is a huge population of elderly people in South America that don't have enough to meet their needs. And I say that to say that, so marriage is not just about love. That is a good component of it. That like Kevin Samuels has said, RIP. He's just saying that a lot of women look at marriage like the Walt Disney type of thing. It's all about rainbows and you know, uh, horses and carriage, and Prince Charm and all that. And really, in many cases, it's about survival. And a lot of times in the past, to kind of get ahead as far as income, you needed a second income. As I mentioned before, in Colombia, the guy who sells the melons, obviously he's not gonna be able to support himself by doing that. He needs a wife, he needs another person. So that's why in these other countries, having a girlfriend, having a boyfriend is very, very important, or having a spouse is very important. So that's why when you go there, so many people looking for a significant other. It's not just about, oh, I'm lonely, I need somebody to be with me, I'm sad, I feel unloved. That is a portion. We all want to connect, we all want to feel love, but that is not the only purpose of having a relationship. And this woman just fails to realize that. And the reason she fails to realize that because, number one, the man in this country has been devalued because of all the government programs, and the government has stepped in and did everything for a woman that a man would want to do and could do. And on top of that, we're such like a rich country. She's not really feeling the harsh conditions that people in these other countries that don't have plumbing. If you remember, like the tsunami that took place, and I believe it was what's the country in Asia? But Indonesia. Tsunami came, swept, tore up everything. If you think about Haiti, constantly having hurricanes there, takes them a long time to rebuild. There's severe poverty there. She's just not been exposed to these kind of conditions, so she doesn't really see the benefit and the value of having a man in her life. So of course she's going to talk crazy like this and say, "Oh, you guys want to be alone." No, it's not just about being alone. Women is not, even with them, it's not just about being alone. It's about survival. I need a man. You need a man in your life. You need to survive. And she just very entitled and just very lucky to be living in the United States. When people are rushing across the border, it's not just about I want to be free and get away from my husband. They're fleeing wars in these countries. They're fleeing violence, gang violence. They're fleeing poverty. They're fleeing. There's some countries now that are having like droughts. There's hardly any water. The water sometimes is polluted. Air is polluted sometimes. So it's not just about uh, you know flossing and trying to live big and drive Mercedes. It's about survival. It's about survival. So while you worried about Pastor Bro, and the thing is, yeah, like, and again, most of Pastor Bros, for us to travel and pay $1,000 plane ticket, we have money, we're well off. So right now, all a lot of us are looking for is we're looking for a wife. We want somebody to settle down with. We want to have kids. That's not a bad thing. And I've already addressed this many times before. And what's so strange about this? These same women who are now saying that we're afraid to be alone when we're not seeking wives, then what do they say? Oh, you guys are the tourists. You guys are the tourists. Because what? We're not selling now. We're just dating this girl. We're dating this girl. We're with this girl. Then we with this girl. And what they call it, you guys are just down there just to, just to get the panties from the girls. You're not really trying to settle down with them. Then they call, they say all types of stuff when we're doing that. So now that we say, okay, we're beyond that, we're more mature, we're looking for wives. Now it's, oh, you're afraid to be alone. That's why you're down there looking for wives. It just don't make any sense. You can't win either way. I kind of went on a tangent, so let me go a little further. Let's see what else she has to say.
How ironic is that? How ironic is that? You don't see the irony? You don't see the irony? And so many people or so many men in my comments are saying things like, good, have fun being single forever. Someone's going to own a lot of cats, da da da. And I'm like, you promise? You promise?
No, Candace Bushnell promises. And who is Candace Bushnell? She is the writer for Sex in the City. She's at 60 years old, and I think I talked about this a little time back. But she had admitted that she regretted choosing a career over having children, and now she's truly alone. And she talked about in this article how in her 30s she didn't really think about the implications of not having children, but now that she was divorced, her husband isn't there, she's getting older, she doesn't have a lot of people to talk to. Now she sees her other friends who have children, and she sees how happy they are. Now she regrets not having children. So I say to say this. Now, of course, are all women going to regret not having? Okay, of course, we do have a percentage of women that might say, "Oh, I didn't want to have children," but a lot of these women are just capping. I mean, even Vivica Fox, she's talking about she's okay being an auntie. I think that's just cap. She didn't find. She was chasing after a certain type of man. She didn't get that type of man. So this is just her trying to compensate and, for the most part, keep herself from crying. That she fooled around. She wasted her youth. Plenty of guys would have wifed her up. She didn't want to do. She didn't want to deal with them because she probably felt like Ebony Williams. Oh, that's a bus driver. Or that's a plumber. I can't really date that kind of guy. So she passed up a lot of guys, and now she's in her. I think she's in her 50s now and looking. She doesn't look like she looked, when she was in her prime. I'll put it that way. I'll be nice and say, put it that way. So that being said, okay, so let's say half of the women, for whatever reason, they're okay without not having children or whatever, and they're happy doing that. The problem is this woman here. Few things. Well, one, she doesn't speak for all women. Two, she kind of sets women up for a big fall for a number of reasons. For one, especially in other countries, as I said before, I told you marriage is not just about being in love and Walt Disney, all the type of stuff. It's about survival. Women have to have it. People have to have a significant other in these other countries to survive. So that's that. So for them not to have children, think about like people in China, they literally were trying to have sons to make sure when they got older, they had a son to kind of look after them because the daughter would go off and it wouldn't go off, start her, be with the husband's family. So then the mother, father wouldn't have anybody take care of them when they got older. They don't really do like here where the government takes care of you. It doesn't work like that. But the other thing here is, she's under this thing because now she's thinking that she has all these simp men chasing after that she's thinking when she gets older that attention is always going to be there. She's not going to have any issues. She's always going to have men trying to talk to her. She's always going to have that attention, and it's not going to be there. And on top of that, as Andrew Tate has said, I think he was saying his grandmother, out of that one woman, like 70 people had came out of her from that woman's sons and daughters, then to their grandchildren, like 70 people there. And I mean, for this woman to think that when she gets that age, she has no children, and all her other friends have children, I just have a feeling that that's gonna really hurt. It's gonna really hurt. On Mother's Day, her friends they're getting gifts. Their children are coming over to see him, and what's she doing? Playing with her cats and dogs. Playing with her cats and dogs. And at the end of the day, I mean, most of the Pastor Bros, we're going anyway. Good thing is there are plenty of women looking for husbands. We're not going to have any problems. So while you're there playing with your cats, giving us a side eye, we're going to be happy. Lord willing, most of us are going to be happily married. We're not going to be thinking about this woman. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's move on.
Brett, I don't know who needs to tell you this, and it's not fair. It's certainly not fair, but I can have like five boyfriends who all serve a different purpose in my life, the same way you guys have had five different girlfriends who did the same thing for you, and freely do that. There are no consequences except for some anonymous profile on TikTok calling me some kind of slur. And guess what, guys? I think I'm ready to face those repercussions.
Okay, and let me speak to that. And I talked about this before in some of my videos. I talked about the a la carte male, a la carte simp. You got one guy that carries her groceries from the store. You got another guy that moves in the furniture for her. You got another guy when she says, "Oh, my TV isn't working. My garbage dispenser isn't working. Can you come fix it?" Guy comes in, fix it. She does nothing for him. Or she's in college. Oh, can you help me with my homework? She's using the guy to kind of get him to do her homework. That kind of thing. You have that going on. But here's the thing. Well, one, passive roles, we could technically do that. I don't do that, and I do that. I don't do that to the foreign women for this exact reason, because as a guy who's been on the opposite side, having plastic women like this use me, other men. As I said before, I'm a recovering simp. When I was younger, I did a lot of simping. I didn't know any better until I started getting older. I got a lot. I talked about my origin story. When I got exposed to foreign women, when I was working at McDonald's, it just completely changed my mind. But when I was younger, I did some simping here and there, and I have a lot of regrets. So as a person who suffered through that, when I go to these other countries to deal with women there, while I could have women, I got one woman who gives me a massage. I have another woman who does the groceries for me. I have another woman that cooks for me. I have a woman that I can do. I mean, most of those passports we can really do that if we wanted to. I don't do that because, well, one, from a moral reason, but also because I have a lot of respect for them. I actually like these women. After dealing with women here in America, I treasure these foreign women so much. I treasure them so much. They're just so kind and friendly and feminine. I wouldn't take any enjoyment in treating them like that. In many cases, what I generally do is I have some women I talk to, but if I'm not really interested, I just kind of, at some point I kind of just move on. But I'm not in a process like she's saying. She's saying that I can just go around using people, but I mean we can do that too, and that's not be dumb as well. In many cases, I don't know if she's single. I don't know what her background is. But a lot of times when these women are saying single by choice, it basically just meaning Chad Tyrone don't really want them. They just kind of use them as like almost like a groupie, you know. Excuse me. But yeah, so and plus all it really does is confirm, and really, like you stated before when we said get your passport, all this does is just make me reemphasize to most men, get your passport, because otherwise this is the type of woman you'll be dealing with. Why deal with her? She she's trying to get by on being cute or whatever, but plenty of women in Ukraine, plenty of women in Russia that look way better than her, equally as beautiful, more beautiful than her, and they don't have this type of attitude, and they have a very traditional background. So right now, Ukraine is not the best because of the war, but I have a feeling when that war ends, it's going to be a good market over there. It's going to be plenty of women look just like her there, very sweet, very feminine. And you won't even be thinking about her. You don't have to be a la carte to any woman. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And about 13 seconds left in this video. Let's finish this up. See what else she has to say.
I think I can get over that. I think it's going to be okay. So, send me a postcard from France.
All right, that's pretty much the end of the video. But one last thing she said, I'm gonna talk with her. She said, and I forgot to talk about this. She said, I could pretty much date 5 different dudes, have them each doing a purpose, and there are no consequences. The most she had received was a guy calling her a slur in the comments, and that's where she messed up. And that's where her and a lot of these OnlyFans models are messing up, because a lot of these simp dudes, a lot of them, they don't take after paying you money and they expecting something. It ain't gonna just be, for some cases, as we be saying with some of these stories, there's been a lot of and I gotta be careful because we're on YouTube, but there have been some very horrible stories that have popped up about some of these women. Let's just say unfortunately, unfortunately, having a bad, the, being deleted. We'll say it like that, deleted, and also, yeah, I gotta be careful. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's been a lot of simps that have kind of went over that line and took things to another level because they thought they were taking care of women. They thought they were gonna get something out of it after like giving her money on OnlyFans, or in this case, this woman. They just say like there's some simp she has that's like carrying her groceries from the store. He does that weekly, and then she says, "Oh no, I'm straight." She doesn't even want to give him a kiss. She just give him a pat on the back. Some of the dudes now, they're not really taking it.
Dear Passport Boys, dear Passport Bros, stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Are you going to the Philippines to look for a Filipina queen or what? So stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Start calling yourself Passport Kings.